So when you were talking about the extracurricular activities earlier, you had mentioned tennis. Were you part of any engineering organizations?
I was part of, I think it's called Tau Beta Pi. It was so long ago I kind of forget, but I was a member of Tau Beta Pi. I wasn't overly active in it. I was also a member of IEEE for many years, but my current work really doesn't require that.
And do you have any funny stories or memories or recollections from your time at ECE that you'd like to share?
Well, I have many, many, many stories, but probably shouldn't share them on film here. But I mean, you know, I have all the typical war stories, if you will, where, for example, just one that comes to the top of my head right now is, I think it was 1983 or so, I took the first VLSI design class offered at UCSB. This is the beginning of VLSI design, which is, VLSI stands for Very Large Scale Integration, which is kind of the beginning of large integrated circuits. And Steve Butner taught the class, and I took it, and I mean, at that point in time, the department had several VAX 11780 computers, Digital Equipment Corp computers, and the computers were in no way up to the workload in terms of the computational workload that class required. So that particular class, I remember just being in the lab all the time because you had to wait for the computer to process your program. And so things have evolved. You know, it's night and day now between doing VLSI design then and now, but at that point in time, you know, people would show up like 2, 3 in the morning to be able to get on the computer when it wasn't loaded down and to get through these classes. But that was, I don't know why that particular memory stood out. I guess it's because I lacked a lot of sleep during that period of time, but it was fun.
Well, what I've heard from students recently, I've been doing some interviews with current undergraduates, is that they definitely remember all the lab times that they have had to go through, and it's a bonding experience for them because everybody's stuck in the same boat at 3 in the morning.
Right.
So that definitely makes sense.
I guess I do remember a lot of the lab times, and in fact, you know, I was a student in many labs, and then I was also a TA, and during my master's, and that was a lot of fun too. I enjoyed it. I actually found out at that point in time I enjoyed teaching, and so I taught the 2 series, the ECE 2 series, which is the sophomore class. I think I taught it 3 years. This was, I think, the first year I was still a graduate student. I can't remember, and then I taught 2 years after I finished college too.
So do you feel that mentorship is really important in terms of helping the younger undergraduates find their passion and find what they're truly interested in?
I think mentorship's fundamentally important. I'm watching my son now. So he's just finished his freshman year, and the teachers he actually bonds with are his TAs, because he goes and he goes to those hours to go over again what was gone over in class. You know, sometimes professors can be a bit intimidating for undergraduates to go visit, and so getting the right mentors can be very, very helpful.
So graduate students, you would say, are pretty important for the college then, for undergraduates, and also for faculty, for research purposes.
Yeah, the graduate students, I mean, in a lot of sense, are kind of the core structure. Is kind of the core piece of which keeps the department going in some sense. First of all, the graduate students are the ones with the guidance of the faculty members, are creating the new discoveries and inventions, which actually are the things which drive the organization's ongoing reputation. Then they're also there to help the undergraduates come up through their learning process as well. So a good graduate student population is actually very important.
Do you have any advice for graduate students who are about to enter into the working or research world after UCSB?
Well, it goes a little bit back to what I was trying to say earlier. You have to kind of figure out what you like. The good news about an engineering education is that it is very broad. It really allows you to do anything. In fact, so I run this company here. I spend very little time now doing what you call core engineering, but I'm always participating in the engineering meetings. Since I have a good basis, I can understand what's going on, but I'm clearly not developing. But in the meantime, I still have to run the financial aspects, the manufacturing, the sales, the marketing aspects of this company. And I've never taken a business class. I have no MBA. And for, the engineering degree gives you kind of a logical thinking process. And I think that's really been very helpful to me in applying, in trying to figure out how to drive all of the different areas of a company.
And would you say that engineering also helps you think outside of the box? I mean, I know for the RoboRats class, the students have to figure out a way to program their robots to pick up certain pieces, and they have to think, they have to think outside of the box, essentially.
Right.
Would you say that has helped you in your in creating companies and also just in your regular day-to-day work?
Well, engineering is actually, it's a very creative process. At the freshman, sophomore, and perhaps part of junior level, it may not seem that way because you're building your basics. But then as you get into, say, your senior year, that's when you can start putting your creativity on top of your basics. What's interesting is that at this company we have a band. They're called the InTouchables, and so there's a guitar, bass player, drummer, keyboard player, etc. And they're all out of the engineering team. They perform at our users meetings, and they're extremely good. But it's very common that it's the engineers who really have this added creativity, for example, being good in music, whereas the people are not coming from the sales and marketing force, which you might think is where creativity lies. But I think sales and marketing people, in general, are very good communicators and very good socially and engaging people to interact with. But it's often the engineers who are the most kind of creative.
And would you say UCSB or College of Engineering fosters that, or is unique in helping students grow out of their comfort zone and figure out what they like?
I think that the UCSB curriculum has a good amount of lab work, and it's really the lab work which can help foster and grow creativity. And this wasn't there when I was a student, but the whole capstone project too. I mean, some of the different robotic competitions also weren't there when I was there, but I think that those, my guess is they really do help foster creativity.